Om Sudhismriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram. We are continuing our discussion on this important text on Advaita philosophy, Advaita Vedanta. So we discussed, in the last session we discussed 133rd verse. Yeshondiratma Purusha Purano Nirandirakhanda Sukhanubhudi Sadaiga Rupa Pradibodha Matro Yeni Shida Vaksavascharanti. There is one divine spark present in all of us, which is activating, which is regulating everything in all of us. Our mind, intellect, emotions, feelings, all these are activated by this divine reality within us. Idea behind. The next verse, Atraiva Sattvatmanidhi Guhayam Avyakradakasha Uruprakasha Akasha Uchchair Vivat Prakashate Sutejasa Vishamidam Prakashayan. This verse is very important from a practical perspective, Vedanta. When somebody may ask this question, when we talk about this highest spiritual reality, Atman, Brahman, which is the transcendental reality, which is present everywhere, which is present in all of us. The question arises, how do we realize this? So this particular verse tells you, Atraiva Sattvatmanidhi Guhaya. So the author says, this Atman is present in our own inner being. That's the means. So it is not something that should come from outside. It is present in all of us. So Vivekananda defined religion as the manifestation of divinity already in all of us, already in man. That is his language. So God is present in all of us. To put in the simple monotheistic language, God is present in all of us. God is not creating this world and sitting outside of the creation, but he is one with all of us. So Atraiva means in this physical body. Now this should be understood properly in Vedantic context. Vedanta is not telling us that this physical body is God or anything. It's not saying that we are gods in God. It's not at all. This can be terribly misunderstood unless we understand the actual implication of this statement. What it says is, this God idea, this divinity, it is not outside of us. It is within ourselves, but not this physical body. So we all know that there is something in all of us which is not physical. It's not part of the physical body-mind complex. It is something different, something transcendental, something which is distinct and different from the physical body. If we are all physical bodies, then life will be totally devoid of any sense of meaning or significance. All of us will be no better than trees and mountains. See, even animals have their own emotions and feelings. You can find many animals, especially animals which live with human beings, tamed animals like cats, dogs, all that. If you observe their life, there is something in all of them which they share with human beings. Love, loyalty, compassion, gratitude, which may be at instinctive level, not a rational level. But still they do display certain unique characteristics, which we all admire in human beings, which we call spiritual qualities. The great teachers of religion use words like compassion, empathy, understanding, brotherhood, whatever it is. These are all different names, different words we use. But then you find different manifestations of these qualities. Not only human beings only, but even animals you find. So if you're all physical bodies, you're nothing more than the physical bodies, there is no need, there is no significance, there is no meaning in any of these higher qualities. But then emotions and feelings do not constitute this divinity within. the divinity goes beyond all that. All the good human qualities that we admire in people are different manifestations of this divinity. So, in fact, there is a very well-known statement in the Gita. It's a very powerful statement. It comes in the second chapter of the Gita, where Lord Krishna is giving a list of the characteristics of a spiritually enlightened person. What are the qualities and characteristics? So from the 55th verse to 78th verse, Prachagadiyada kaman sarvan parthamanogadan atmanne vatmana tushtasthita prajnastatocire dukkeshu anudikta manasukheshu bigadasprakha vidaraga bhaya krodakshadi muniruchere, etc. So a person who is compassionate, who is perfectly is fully established in equanimity of mind, who is even-minded in both pain and pleasure, good and bad, joy and misery, whose mind remains steadfast, unaffected, totally immune to the vagaries of human life and problems, good and bad. Mind remains calm and quiet and steady. Well, this part of the Gita text, second chapter, is called Siddhapeke Lakshanani, means a part which gives a list of a spiritually enlightened person who is established in this divinity within. And in the same text, there is another chapter in the later part of the Gita, in the 13th chapter, which gives a list of human qualities. So, for example, humility, unpretentiousness, non-injury, mean ahimsa, forbearance, uprightness, service to teacher, non-attachment, non-identification with one's own selfish desires, constant application to spiritual knowledge. All these are considered to be qualities of an ideal spiritual seeker. It begins like this: 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th verses. Total 5 verses. Amanittam adambittam ahimsa kshanti rajyavam acharyo vasanam shaujam sairyam atma vinigraha. And that is the 7th. The 11th is adhyatma jnana nityatvam tattva jnanartha darshanam edajnanamidi proktam ajnanam yadadonyatha. This whole list of qualities I mentioned here in English. The 13th chapter from 7 to 11th verse. Now, these are human qualities that you can find among some of those great men, even political leaders who have lived for some higher ideals, scientists who have looked beyond the immediate tangible benefits of scientific research. Those who have looked for some higher ideals, transcendental ideals, you can find some of these qualities. Now, during this part, in this commentary, in this section of the text, the commentator Shankaracharya, again the author of the same text that we are discussing now, Vivekachudamani, we are discussing that. In the Gita commentary, the same author says, Sarvatra hi adhyatma shastra kudartha lakshanani tani eva sadhanani ubadishyante. Well, it's a very profound statement. If I explain to you, you'll understand how it is. Wherever you find in scriptures or religious scriptures, philosophical books, spiritual works, you find a list of great qualities is outlined, higher qualities. Normally, spiritual qualities that you admire in or everywhere, in all, they're mentioned with one specific purpose. And the purpose is to make all of us understand how we can ourselves reach that level of enlightenment. So this is a very interesting topic. What's the use of learning or memorizing the list of all the good qualities of a highly enlightened person, like a Buddha or Shankaracharya, Sri Ramakrishna or Christ, anyone for the matter, those who are spiritual teachers. What's the practical advantage or benefit of knowing the number of qualities that they possessed, that they had? And he says, what they have achieved constitute different qualities that we should strive to acquire through our own effort. So if we can be compassionate, broad-minded, humble, non-attached, have a good heart for everyone, no hatred for anyone, looking upon the whole creation as one spiritual family, and then you don't believe in God, Gita says you can very easily live a spiritual life. So these are all qualities. Now these qualities are called spiritual qualities, not because they're found only among spiritual teachers or those whom we normally consider to be saints or spiritual teachers or prophets or founders of religion. No. In any human being where you find all these qualities, those qualities constitute spirituality. And this is again, this is a statement coming from the greatest name in Hindu spiritual tradition. Historically speaking, there are great teachers like Rama, Krishna and others. And close to our own times we had Sri Ramakrishna, the manifestation of the same tradition in modern times. But Shankaracharya, who wrote all these books, he doesn't include a formal worship of a god in a temple as a necessary requisite or quality for being spiritual. What he's saying, he says all these, even-mindedness, equanimity of mind, compassion for everyone, looking at pain and pleasure with the same equanimity of mind, being detached or being non-attached to worldly things, looking upon everyone as one spiritual family. These are the qualities mentioned. There is no mention that you should believe in something, or you should perform a ritual, or you should consider somebody as a prophet or God or whatever. Nothing of the kind. Just try to acquire these qualities. Some of these qualities can be found even among people who deny God and religion. That's the most shocking and surprising part of it. And he says, Sarvatra hi adhyatma shastre kridartha lakshanani tani eva sadhanani upadishyante. Wherever you find a list of spiritual qualities outlined in any scripture as qualities achieved or practiced by the highest spiritual teachers, those qualities are means that help us to achieve enlightenment in our own life. If you can acquire those qualities, you can become spiritual. A simple example can be mentioned. I say, what is the feature of a strong man? In normal conversation, you may say, a fellow with strong muscles is physically strong. That is a characteristic of a spiritually strong person. So you need not think about becoming strong, but you just try to acquire those muscle structure, let's say. To give an example, you can't do that without doing physical exercise, training yourself. Then what happens? You become a strong person. If you want to be a musician, you may have a list of qualities of a great musician. You forget about the musician and the qualities, but you try to acquire those qualities in your own life, and you find you have become a musician. So like that, if a person becomes a good human being, he becomes a Vedantic, he becomes a spiritual person. That is the meaning here, Atraiva Sattvatmani Dhiguhayam. So this divine spark that is present in everything and everywhere is residing in our own inner being. The Dhiguha means, actually literal meaning is in a cave we find. Cave the intellect. The idea is, it is not a cave that is referred to. It is not even intellect that is referred to. Something that we can only call our own inner being, our own inner essence. And that is of the nature of Sattva Guna, spiritual quality. And then it is effulgent. It is effulgent and is its light, its illumination is widespread everywhere. And it is illuminating all our powers, everything in this world. So sometimes this is called, this sometimes compared to sun. So sometimes, when we attain spiritual enlightenment, that is sometimes compared to getting, called spiritual illumination. So enlightenment, there also light is present. So illumination. And what is the most effulgent thing in this world? Full of light, sunlight. Now sunlight doesn't borrow light from anything anywhere. Sunlight is essentially of the nature of light. Whatever manifests, whatever appears in close proximity with sun rays, sunlight becomes revealed. So, like that, this Atman residing in all of us is like a sunlight. It enlivens, it illumines, it activates our intellect, our emotions, our mind, our thoughts, everything. And that is the most practical way of understanding Atman. So one way of understanding Atman is sometimes called comparing or looking upon Atman as self-effulgent light. So maybe if you have got, let's say, flashlight or a wick, maybe some candlelight or whatever it is, those lights have to borrow light from another source, a battery light. Flashlight has to borrow light from a battery. A candle has to borrow light from another lighted candle. But sun doesn't have to borrow light from anywhere. Sunlight is always present. So sometimes this Atman is compared to light, self-effulgence. So it activates our body, our mind, and our intellect. This is the idea behind. So this is the philosophical understanding. How it helps us. What's the use of acquiring this light? So light manifests as a set of these higher spiritual qualities. So you can see there are two ways of approaching this Atman. One is Atman as the essence of effulgence, something which illumines everything in this world. In its proximity, everything gets illumined, revealed, because it is the regulator, it is the one that gives life and light to everything. The other way of understanding is, it makes us a good spiritual human being. And becoming a good spiritual human being is not the same as becoming a formal religious person. Frequently, people who claim to be religious can be totally opposite of spirituality. Frequently it happens. So that's why the great commentator Shankaracharya gives this list of spiritual qualities. It's given in the Gita, and then he says, you try to acquire all these qualities. If you want to be a Christ, you try to practice some of the qualities that you find mentioned in the New Testament. You try to be a Shankaracharya, you try to acquire those qualities. You try to be like a Vivekananda or a Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa, you try to see Sri Ramakrishna, many people came to him. Many people, not always believers, sometimes non-believers, agnostics, atheists came to Sri Ramakrishna. They were never disappointed. He didn't ask them to believe in anything. Sometimes, total non-believers came. Agnostics came. In fact, his own personal doctor, who was never willing to go to the temple nearby. Sri Ramakrishna was living in a temple. People who came there mostly had come to visit the temple. And as part of the pilgrimage, they also went and met him. He was a spiritual teacher living in the Dakshineshwar temple. But this doctor very rarely went to the temple. He came to the Dakshineshwar and walked straight to his room. And Sri Ramakrishna did not insist, you will go to the temple first. He didn't bother. But that's what he's told all others, you go to temple. But Dr. Sarkar, he did not mention. He did not ask him to go to the temple first. Because Sri Ramakrishna knew he was a good man. And if you read the conversation between Dr. Sarkar and Sri Ramakrishna, you find Dr. Sarkar had a great fascination, had a great reverence for Sri Ramakrishna. Though he did not look upon him as a guru or anything. But he found in Sri Ramakrishna certain wonderful human qualities, which incidentally were spiritual qualities. And that made him a great devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. Though he was an agnostic, he was something like an atheist. So, what it means is, when a person becomes spiritual, what happens is, he manifests his inner divinity, the presence of the divine within him completely. He becomes a spiritual person. This idea is again repeated again. Jnata manohankriti vikriyanam dehendriya pranakada kriyanam ayoknivat tanuvartamano na cheshtadeno vikarodi kinchana. So, this Atman is now depicted as somebody who knows everything about us. He knows our mind, its activities, he knows our mental functions, our ahankara, our emotions. He knows what we do with our body, with our senses, with the prana, he knows everything. So he's depicted as somebody who knows everything, but is not known empirically by anyone. So frequently this is an interesting point in Vedanta. Atman is depicted as a knower, as a seer, as a perceiver, as a witness, as a subject of everyone and everything. But Atman itself is not an object of anything. Atman is not seen, Atman is not understood, it's an object that could be seen empirically. Normally when we see things, when we know things, we interpret our knowledge in terms of understanding, by seeing, by visualizing, by hearing. 5 senses and mind together function, and the result is knowledge, normal thing. So Atman cannot be understood. But then it can be attained. Attaining doesn't mean we go somewhere and get it. Then Vedanta, this is an important point, we don't achieve anything. We only remove the unnecessary parts of it. We just get rid of wrong notions about our true identity, then our true identity manifests itself without help of anything. See, Vedanta, you don't just go somewhere, you don't do something and achieve anything. Rather, what we do through our own spiritual practices, what is happening is, we get rid of all the garbage from our system, which means all the wrong notions that we have in our mind as to what we are. So normally people interpret themselves in terms of the physical body, their different identities. And all these identities are linked to what they are physically. That's our total identity. Our place of stay, our identity card, or passport, all these are linked to our physical body, where we are born, what's the first name, last name that we had. So are linked to our body. These are primary identity, really speaking. So when we go beyond this, when we realize that the physical identity is only an outer shell, then what happens is we begin to manifest something that is beyond the body. Ayoknivattan anuvartamano na cheshtade no vikarodi kinchana. So this Atman knows the mind. Atman is an all-knowing entity, all-knowing perceiver, witness, subject of everything. And this Atman activates everything. So somebody could, there is ayoknivat tan anuvartamano. So here in example given here, ayapinda means, aya means a piece of iron, agni means fire. So when a piece of iron gets heated, becomes red hot, that piece of iron becomes hot. But the heat doesn't belong to the iron piece. The heat belongs to the fire, the agni. Like that, everything in this world is activated by Atman. The fire doesn't do anything. Only when you place this piece of iron in fire, it gets red hot. Fire is not doing anything. Its association makes the iron red hot. Similarly, our proximity with Atman makes our senses, our mind, our intellect function. Now one may ask this question, how do we realize this? How do we identify somebody who actually practices this? Practice the identity with Atman, not the physical body. So that's it. Na jayate, no mriyate, na vardhate, na kshiyate, na vigarodi nityaha, valiyamanepi, babhushyamasmin, na liyate kumbha ivambaram swayam. So this is an important point in Vedanta which needs some explanation. So you find in Vedanta, as I mentioned earlier, according to our own evolution, we realize, we understand, we comprehend, we interact with the spiritual truth. At the most primitive level, we are to somewhere in the kindergarten, in spiritual life. So Vedanta tells you that at the kindergarten level, we may think God is present, specially present in some place, and God expects us to perform some rituals. He expects us to confirm, I believe in this. He wants you to affirm your faith in His existence. And He wants you to take a vow that you follow certain rules and regulations. And also you develop an affiliation to a place, to a hierarchy, to certain people, super social, religious, theological structures. This is perfectly okay. Vedanta doesn't reject this. Vedanta will tell you that this is only beginning of spirituality. Maybe that's a main difference between Advaita Vedanta and all other religious traditions, including some of the monotheistic religious traditions. We define religion and spirituality in terms of certain formal affiliations to faith systems, places of worship, becoming part of a congregation. This is how we normally associate the word spirituality and religion in modern times. Vedanta says it's okay. So when Vivekananda came to this country to speak on this Vedanta, so he only spoke of these great things. But people felt, well, this man is speaking about some universal spiritual truths. He looks different, he speaks differently, he has a different philosophical, theological doctrine to share with them. But they noticed in him something interesting. He was so universal and he was so positive. He didn't reject anyone. And more than everything else, in the 19th century, to their shock and to their surprise, their pleasant surprise, as the 19th century, last decade in which Vivekananda came to this country, if you are a student of sociology or anthropology, you'll find there was a highly enlightened group of small, maybe not too big, highly enlightened people who are looking for something transcendental. You may say the background was prepared by the transcendentalist, by Emerson, Thoreau, Whitman and others. But when he spoke about these universal teachings, this spirituality and Vedanta, people who belong to totally different religious affiliation, or people from different parts of the world, mostly Americans, they found something truly spiritual about him. That's because he did not reject anyone. He did not say this is wrong, this is the only way right, otherwise you go to hell. He didn't say that. But he said everyone should follow, could follow his own faith, but becomes a good human being. You pray with a sincere heart. Whatever religious tradition you are born into. Why should God give a wrong religion to one group of people and mislead them so that they go to hell, and give the right kind of religion to another kind of people, privileged people, and they go to heaven? No. Such a thing is incomprehensible, totally against the basic logic of religion and spirituality. So God should be viewed as a embodiment of compassion, universality, looking upon entire creation as his own creation soul. Now, so you find him traveling all over America. He came to San Francisco also. He came and gave a number of lectures here in different churches, including the First Unitarian Church in Oakland. And there are many places he came to and went to different parts of the United States. So what I mean to say, he was actually talking about what we are discussing now. The book we are discussing right now is one of the most important foundational texts of what Vivekananda taught. What he taught was this: God, in the highest sense, is one divine reality present in all of us. And we can manifest this inner divinity by practicing some higher spiritual qualities. And when you practice these qualities, this inner divinity will manifest. For this, you may go to a place of worship and pray. Okay, wonderful. You may consider a book as divine, wonderful. No problem. You may believe, you may endorse some traditional hierarchical belief systems. No problem. But the basic purpose is to manifest this inner divinity within. That's all. And to understand whether a person is genuinely spiritual or not is he manifesting the divinity within? How do we judge whether he is manifesting or not? Whether he is compassionate, he is kind-hearted, he is a person without any prejudices, he looks upon everyone with a sense of equality and oneness, then that divinity is manifesting. Why? Because the divine spark is present in everyone. So a person, a truly spiritual person, cannot reject anyone, cannot condemn anyone. So Now, on the one hand, you say Atraiva Sattvatmani Dhi Guhayam Avyakrudakasha Uruprakashaka. Akasha Uchchaira Vivat Prakashade. Hey, sky is mentioned, Ravi actually means sun. So this inner divinity, it effulgent like sun. Sun has no prejudice. Sun distributes its light on everyone, everything. It's like that, this inner divinity is manifesting everywhere. Now, to eventually to reach this level of enlightenment, one can practice faith systems, go to place of worship, read scriptures, meditate, pray, and any practice is okay. But the ultimate purpose is to manifest this inner divinity. That is the important thing to remember. And this divinity manifests as the knower, as the perceiver, as a witness of all that we do and all that is going on within our hearts. And that divinity is called Atman. Now remember, gods with different names and different associated with different faith systems are perfectly okay. But that belief system eventually takes us to this universality of spiritual experience. So this says that is the same divine spark is present everywhere in everything. It is called Atman in Vedanta. So about this Atman in the 136th verse you find, it's not born. Why? It always exists. It doesn't die why? Because it always exists. It doesn't grow. It doesn't change. It doesn't undergo any changes because it is the only eternal, everlasting, absolute reality present in the past, present and future. It cannot be even interpreted in terms of existence or non-existence because it goes beyond both. It is the only reality, the only ultimate reality that is in this world, that is present. Everything else is changing. This idea behind. So that idea continues the next verse. Prakriti Vikriti Bhinna Shuddhas Bodhas Subhava Sadasa Idam Asesham Bhasaya Nirvishesha Vilasadi Paramatma Jagradishu Avasthasu Ahamahamidi Saksha Sakshu Rupena Buddhehi. We already discussed this here. One point that is mentioned is one way of understanding. So there are different ways of understanding. One way of understanding is there is somebody, something within us, and that's the witness of everything. All our experiences not only in waking state, in dreams or deep sleep state. It is one witness that never sleeps, that always remains awake, that is present in the past, present and future. So frequently, one way of understanding this Atman is trying to understand it in terms of being the witness, the perceiver, the drashta, the seer, the perceiver, the witness, the subject that is always present in waking, in dream and in dreamless deep sleep states. And again, it is illuminating everything. Says Sadasada Mishesham Bhasayan Nirvishesha. It illumines everything in this world. And it is the ultimate reality. And then it is the witness of our own intellect. That's why sometimes he made his witness. Sometimes God is defined as witness. So witness is somebody who is not involved in what he is a witness of. At the same time, he is aware of what he claims to have witnessed. So the absolute reality is present there but not involved. So on the one hand, it is present in all of us. On the other hand, it is existing in the past, present and future. Secondly, it is a witness, it is a seer, perceiver of everything in this world. So there are different ways of understanding and explaining this reality. Now we can have interaction. You are most welcome with questions. Thank you.
Swamiji, if Atman and Paramatman are not different,
Atman and
Atman and Paramatman
are the same.
Are the same. Can we also think of as Atman as a door to Paramatman, not Atman doesn't exist, only Paramatman exists? Or, I don't know, kind of.
I'll explain. So, what you call Atman, what you mentioned, you imply Jivatman, the individual soul. The not intellect, individual soul. So individual soul is the Paramatman, the Supreme Atman manifesting through our mind, through our samskaras. To give an example, a light, the light of a lamp, very often the color, the quality of the light depends upon the color of the filament, the glass that covers it. It can be any color depending upon the type of lamp you have got. The same Paramatman manifests in all of us. And that Paramatman manifesting in the individual soul is called Jivatma. You can call it another one way of understanding is, suppose space, you have got a pot here. The space within the pot is the individual soul. The space outside the pot is the Paramatman, the universal reality. Now what is the pot? The pot is nothing but mind, intellect, mechanism. Kantakarna it is called. 17 parts. Emotions and feelings, all that. Panchajnanendriya, Karmendriya, and Panchamahabhuta, mind and intellect, 17. So in other words, we can say Antakarana means our emotions and feelings, samskaras, tendencies, that decide how this inherent Atman manifests in our character. This is like the size of the pot. Or another way of understanding is the reflection in a mirror. The reflection is Jivatma. The prototype is Paramatman. The sun is Paramatman. The light reflecting on the mirror is Jivatman. So very often, the reflection very much depends upon the quality of the mirror. Sun is not responsible if the mirror doesn't reflect the light properly. The mirror is full of dust, you don't get very good reflection. If the pot is small, the space within the pot will be accordingly small. So, and what as I mentioned, the pot can be compared to our mind and intellect. So if our samskaras, tendencies, impressions that we have inherited from previous life, from our own background, if they are good, then you find this Atman manifest in full effulgence. Now there is a well-known statement in Vivekananda's complete work. She was answering the same question. So he says in it's a very interesting statement. He says the difference between an amoeba and a Buddha is one of degrees and not of kind. So it doesn't mean that the amoeba doesn't manifest the Atman within. But amoeba manifests Atman in a very low degree. The difference between amoeba and the Buddha is it. Buddha here means the enlightened one. So what's the difference between a Buddha and an amoeba? An example. Amoeba is a very primitive organism. It has hardly anything in it. But it's also manifest because it exists, it grows, it affects. Even amoeba has its own role to play in this totality of creation. bacteria, all those things. But they have soul in it, but then very primitive manifestation. In a Buddha, it is more effulgent. What does it mean? That Buddha represents a very crystal clear mirror, where the light reflects in all its illumination, grandeur. Amoeba is like maybe a dirty, a cloudy, a dusty mirror surface. So no light. So all of us can manifest more and more of this light by clearing and cleaning the mirror of our mind. So you find, for example, when you do something good, or when you do something that is helpful to your spiritual life, normal human being, he feels a kind of inner contentment. In Sanskrit, there are different words and examples for this. That's because you have done something that manifests, that helps you to manifest that inner divinity a little more. So Buddha represents somebody who has reached that level of manifestation. That's the idea behind. Everyone can, you can start your own evolution. That's a very wonderful system. It gives you a lot of freedom. See, you can certainly become a Buddha if you want, not tomorrow, gradually. There's a long way to go, but you can certainly become a Buddha. That's the idea behind. You can start your journey today, in this life. Maybe after some hundreds of life cycles, you become a Buddha. So that is a very interesting thing. And if you go, temples, churches, prayers, reading scriptures, religious belief systems, these are all very helpful. They are only tools for us to eventually manifest this divinity. And one important quality of this view is zero fanaticism and then complete freedom of action. Anyone can evolve in spiritual life. You just become a Buddha. Nothing wrong. If the world will be benefited if you become a Buddha. Your neighbors will be benefited. Because Buddha, here I don't mean Buddha, Gautama Buddha. Vivekananda used the word Buddha. In Sanskrit, Buddha means the enlightened one. That's the literal meaning of Buddha in Sanskrit. Any enlightened, spiritually enlightened person will be an asset to this world, blessing to the world. That's the idea. It's clear to you? Thank you. So we'll conclude now. Om Shanti, 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat, Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.